Okay, so storytime videos seem to be really kind of the way to go. They're unique. This is sort of just unfolded naturally, and so today I decided I was just gonna give into it and hunker down, get in my pajamas, sit here next to the fire in my great stiletto shoe chair, and pull a story out of this jar and tell you what it is. The reason I have stories in a jar is because when you decide to write a memoir, or it would be the same if you're going to write a novel as well, I suppose. But you make a list of all the stories that you need to include, and then you work on them story by story. So that's what this is. And the reason I thought it would be so great to just storytime seem to work out really well because they are a way for me to illustrate a lot of the points we all talk about. So you can take these lessons and information that we all are teaching and learning on our different channels and through our different lessons, and then watch it play out in a real life story from my own life that I can pull from my memoir, in my memory banks. Okay, so this, and sometimes I can actually, I'll usually just tell the stories, but occasionally if you want me to share some of my writing, I can maybe share some. In case you're wondering, the manuscript really does exist. This is my memoir. This is my memoir right now. It's my manuscript, so it really does exist. And here's my 2 self-help books that are actually not in print right now. I'm kind of refurbishing them, but I wrote these some years ago. They're about ransoming your life back, and then a ransom for love, a ransom for life. And they're about basically after your life gets wiped out and everything has fallen to shambles, how you start over again, how you reinvent yourself. And then for love is about how you heal a broken heart and learn to love again. So that's what those are basically about. And those will be probably free ebooks as soon as I get them republished and I wanted to make them a little more tell more of my story in them. I wrote them before I started writing the memoir, and so they are really straightforward workbooks with mostly just exercises. That were exercises that I used, that I discovered, that worked for me, and that I incorporated into my practice, and so it was really just a straightforward workbook. But I decided that I wanted to use more of my story, incorporate more of my story into the workbooks, and so that's what I was going to change about them. And I'm not crazy, I'm not sure if I'm crazy with the titles and stuff like that, so they just need a little fixer-upper. But anyways, so that's my 3 books, and then this is my jar of, actually this is only one of the jars, I have a couple of these, but this is about topics and stories, and a lot of the time this is just about how I would be able to come up with a story to write, as I would just like I do here, if I didn't have one in mind that I wanted to write. Okay, so this one is saying that the story we need to write about, or talk about today, not write, is about my early dating situation with him. Early dates and red flags. What was early dating like? Okay. And were the red flags? Oh my gosh, yes. Oh my goodness, yes. Alright, so first of all, I have this on some earlier videos that I described, that I was pretty vulnerable. I was pretty vulnerable when I first met up with him, and I call him R. R is the name that I give him in the book. That's what I call him. So the names that I'm going to use for everybody are the names that I use in the book. But R is you know, I have gone through a breakup, and you know, basically a lot of transition has happened because I've just moved up home to my hometown, which is between Seattle and Portland, and I'm temporarily living with my parents and just trying to figure out what my next move is going to be. I'm going to link another story, another video with my my very first story, dating story, that is hookup through Maeve. Okay, so that's going to be another link that I'm gonna put down here, and so that should give you a little insight into my parents and also into R and how the dynamic works with R. Okay, so now we are up in I'm up in Washington. My brother is there. He's got his fiance from Scotland there. I've been out now one time with R, but I'm not planning on necessarily. I don't know if I'm not really planning on seeing him again. I don't know. You know, I'm kind of a little put off by how it all happened. I was just going to focus on family, and my brother was home, and I was focused on his fiance and all of that. And so we were working up to they'd been home for a day or two, and we were working up to the party, the engagement party, and but we were going to go out and play some pool. And so just as we're getting ready to go, this is like a couple of my brother's friends and his fiance and myself, and the phone rings, and it's R, and my brother picks up the phone, and he's completely put off by the fact that he's like, are you dating him? Like, are you dating that loser? That's basically what he says, and which really rubs me wrong. Like I immediately bristle with that kind of thing. He didn't actually say loser. How I find out loser is my mother tells me that he called him a loser, which is typical for my mother. But you know, so he says, "Are you dating him?" I'm like, No, I'm not dating him. Well, anyways, I get on the phone with him, and of course, this is before cell phones, so I'm on the phone in the kitchen, you know, talking in front of everybody, and he says, he basically sort of invites himself. He's like, you know, basically, can I come along? And I'm like, okay, sure. And so I'm having just a really hard time picturing him with my brother and his friends. They're just completely from two different walks of life. It just seems like a very strange fit. But again, so was Maeve with him. So I don't know. And actually, my ex-boyfriend, Paul, who I call Paul, he was friends with him. Not close friends, but you know, more than just acquaintances. And you know, and I really respected his opinions and tastes and everything. And so, you know, he kind of was coming in with some recommendations of people that I respected. And so, you know, I was like, whatever, yes, you know, give it a try. He seems like a nice enough guy. He seems really, you know, attentive and really, you know, enthusiastic and wanting to, you know, willing to take risks and put himself out there. So anyway, so we tell him where we're going to be. When we get down there, by the time we get down there, he's already got everything all set up. He's got, he's bought beer. He's got the table reserved. He's got, you know, chairs set up. I mean, he has, you know, really gone out of his way to like make it all really nice. You know, show me how much effort he is willing to go through for me and my family. And so, you know, they're just playing pool and drinking beer, and it's kind of like it's starting to almost feel like we're even more of a couple than my brother and his fiance. I mean, by the second hour or so, he's coming by. We're sharing a glass. You know, he's coming by and we're sharing a glass of. Oh, speaking of glasses, this is a Trump champagne flute. this is where he should stick. He should stick to running hotels. That's what I think. The idea of him being president is super scary. But anyways, this was from my wedding in Hawaii. It was the Trump Hotel. Actually, I think we stayed at the Trump Hotel both in Las Vegas and in Hawaii. We had weddings 2 years in a row. We had one private wedding, and then we had one where the family was already going to Hawaii in 2012, so we did another like reenactment so that we could have a ceremony around family. Anyways, it was all of Scott's family. So at the original wedding, it was only just my sons and us. Anyway, so fast forward. So you know, he's coming by. He's like getting a drink and rubbing my back, and you know, being like very, very attentive and warmly affectionate. And I am just, it feels really good. You know, I'm just feeling really, you know, good about it. And it's kind of striking all the right chords with me, and you know, whatever. So finally, one of the guys says, "Hey, you know, your girl's gonna come play," and we're like, "Okay, sure," you know. So we go to get up, and she's, you know, she's taller than me, so she just hops right up. I'm wearing high heel boots and a skirt, and I have my heels like right behind the bar stool, and you know, on the little bar that goes around the bar stool. And I go to get up, and my heels get hooked on the bar down there. I go tipping over, and there's no way I can catch myself. The glass goes flying across the room, catapults across the room, smashes on the concrete wall, breaks and shatters into 1,000 pieces. I fall into a heap on the floor, and this bar stool falls on top of me. And it is embarrassing. I mean, it's like silent. It goes silent. And I'm just looking down. And after a couple of seconds, I'm just thinking, I'm mortified. I'm trying to like get my bearings, hoping like my panties aren't showing or something. And my hair is hanging in front of my face, thank God. I just put up my hand and go like that. And then, fortunately, music starts up again and conversation starts again. And it feels a little less like, you know, like everyone's staring at me and I can breathe. I turn around and I look up, and my brother is standing there. And he says the perfect thing. Happens to me all the time. He says to me and helps me up, which is just perfect. And so, you know, I kind of dust myself off and I look around. Where's R? Where's R? Oh, he left. I guess he couldn't take it. He got really embarrassed. He bolted. He left. Okay. That's not the worst part. The worst part is that I find him, like in the next place we go, or I don't know if I go to set out to find him, I find him and strike conversation back up and just keep going like nothing happened. I see him talking to somebody, and he, you know, kind of breaks away, and he's like, "Whoa, that was embarrassing," or something like that. And I go, "Yeah, what did I say? I said something like, you know, sorry about the ordeal, or sorry about embarrassing you," or something. I apologized to him. And we're barely into the conversation when my brother shows up, and he's like, "We're getting ready to go home." And I'm like, "Okay." And I'm like, "Well, I think he's going to drive me home." And my brother makes some comment about they doesn't really approve, you know, they didn't really approve of what he did about him walking out like that. But not big. It was very subtle, but just enough that I sensed that that's what he was saying. And then that was it. But I forget all about this. And it's not until 10 years later, and we're in counseling. This is what's very interesting. 10 years later, we're in counseling. And I remember it. I remember this happening. And I say to him, so we're in counseling, and I go, you know, I had this memory the other day, and I couldn't believe it. But it's like, I kind of feel like it was like a hint about what was going to happen. And he goes, are you going to start talking about that time when you fell in the bar? I thought that he, like, I had completely forgotten about it. And here he knew exactly what I was going to say before I even said it 10 years later. And I go, and he goes, that shit was embarrassing. He goes, I barely knew you. He was still trying to justify it. This blew me away. So I was blown away by so much of it. I was blown away by that I remembered it, that it happened, that he did that. I was blown away by the fact that I just overlooked it and that I blocked it out of my memory. I was blown away by the fact that he remembered it. I was blown away by the fact that he still was going to try and justify it. And so I try to get my bearings, and I go, wait a minute. Okay, so I asked the therapist, I go, okay, I'm just, correct me if I'm wrong. If you saw someone fall like that, even a stranger who didn't even know, wouldn't you go up to him and help him up? I mean, wouldn't you do that? And he goes, yeah, I would. And I just kind of sit back and I'm thinking, and I was some of you like really wanted to press, and my brother was there. Like, you were trying to impress me, and you were trying to impress my brother, and you walked out. And that now, 10 years later, basically you're doing the same exact thing, and my brother's watching you do it, and he's applauding you for doing it. It was unreal. It was unreal. And to bring it full circle, the other thing that comes out in this counseling session 10 years later, actually it wasn't quite then, it was at our so counseling sessions at the same time. It also comes out that what my husband has told my parents to get them to just so, without asking any questions, just completely take his side and just abandon me, no questions asked, is that he said to them that I've been talking to him about flashbacks and lost childhood memories and repressed memories, and that my childhood is the reason for my depression and all this stuff. Okay, what he's done is he has remembered the very first conversation we had when we very first met 10 years ago. The conversation that I stuffed, the thing that I stuffed that I hadn't talked about in 10 years, he dredged that back up, knowing that it was going to trigger my parents and making them think that I hadn't buried it, that I hadn't stuffed it, that I was actually back to, or had always been, looking for ways to expose them. So he had done a few things. He triggered my parents into being, their big fears about exposure, and he'd also set everyone off the track of the real problem, which was him, which was the fact that my real depression was based on the fact that I was being abused by him. But this to me was just amazing. This was 10 years later, and these things that I had completely forgotten about were now playing out. He had like sucked them away like a chipmunk, like nuts. Like these little pieces of toxic poison he'd kept away like nuts, just to infuse into my life as soon as he was ready to discard me. That is a sign of a sociopath. That is a sure sign of a sociopath. It was unreal. Okay, so that's some good sociopathic stories right there. those are red flags. Of course, I didn't know there were so much red flags at the time. But of course, what this also informs me, way more than anything else, the biggest, most bizarre piece of behavior there was my own, in the fact that I went and hooked back up with him and stayed with him, and you know, why would I do that? Why would I do that? If you want to hear more stories like this, because there are tons more, there are plenty more, give me a thumbs up, please, and subscribe, and I will see you soon. Okay, bye-bye. My expectations were pretty low, so the things you could get away with were pretty bad. Oh my gosh, this is the making of a target here. That is a target's behavior, and how not to be one. Okay, so take my story. As I say, I lay myself on the altar as the one who did everything wrong. And